I'm going to be working on the lower axle assembly now. This is for the left side of the track drive. I'm using the files from Andy Love. I believe they're the same files from the files for the 3D printing. I believe they're the same files from the Yukon track drive system, but Andy Love split these into, split the lower axle assembly into 3 parts. I only have a Bamboo Lab X1C printer, so I could not print the entire piece as one piece. So I used Andy Love's files and printed it as 3 pieces. One thing to note with the alignment pins, there is actually a top and a bottom of these pieces. When you put the pieces together, you want to test fit them, and you should see that the seam around this connection right here, it should line up. If you rotate it, you're gonna see it's no longer aligned. The round shaft is offset from the center piece. So I made sure to mark my pieces with the top, just so that when I put it together, I know that, okay, that's the top. And the same with the other side. The alignment pins are in a different location, but it's still the same concern. If you have it backwards or upside down, it's still gonna fit together, but the alignment's gonna be off. I'm not sure if you can see that, but. So again, just trial fit everything and make sure your seams are lining up. And then the other thing I did was I wanted to make sure the carbon fiber tube would go into this without too much trouble, and it does, so that's not a problem. I also checked both ends to make sure they'd fit on. So now I'm just going to go ahead and put all these together. I'm going to be using Hysol EA 9460 epoxy. I've used this for remote control aircraft, and I really like this particular epoxy. So I just decided to go ahead and use this. I'm going to use a disposable mixing tip. And basically what I want to do is I want to start this rod a little bit in here. And now I'm going to start with the epoxy. And it's nice, these mixing tips, I'm not sure if you can see that, but they mix the epoxy as you're pushing it out. So it kind of saves you a step, and then plus it has an applicator tip. And I'm just putting epoxy in here. I'm going to put a little bit of epoxy on, and then I'm just going to rotate this as I'm pushing it in. Try to get some of that epoxy inside there. I just want to see about how far I need to go. That should be good. And now I'm just gonna epoxy the rest of this. Most of this epoxy is most likely gonna come to the center or come to the connection point. It's gonna get pushed down, but I'm still gonna go ahead and get this connection, get a fair amount of epoxy on there. I can wipe some off if it comes out. I'm not worried about that. Again, you want to make sure you have your alignment proper, top to top. And I'm going to spin this as I put it on, just to try and get some of that epoxy. See, that's nice. I like that. That epoxy's coating that shaft. That's exactly what I wanted. And as you can see, the bulk of the epoxy is still gonna be wiped down to the center, but at least we're getting good coverage on the shaft, on the carbon fiber shaft. I'll check my alignment again. And yeah, we got a lot of extra epoxy out of there. That's probably way too much, eh? That's all right. We're just gonna wipe it off. Just wipe off the excess. You could probably go a lot lighter on the other side. That was way too much epoxy. I'm just wiping off the excess epoxy right here. Then should also note I have a bar clamp ready to go because I want to clamp this all together. Okay, that was way too much epoxy on that side, so I'm gonna try not to use as much on this other side. I'm gonna do the same process, so I wanna make sure I have some around the inside seam though for sure, and some on the alignment pins. And then I'm just gonna run a couple strips up through here. I'm gonna do the same process. I'm gonna feed this side on and then just rotate it as it's going in. Pull it back apart. Try to get that epoxy spread out onto the shaft. Oh, I like that. That's working really well. And again, I'm checking my alignment, and I'm going to push that together. Now that I have it together, I'm gonna go ahead and move this off to the side. I have a bar clamp ready to go, so I want to try and clamp this all together. And I'm not going to use a lot of pressure, but I am just going to make sure it's tight. I'm not cranking down on it. I'm not trying to compress it too much. I'm just trying to make sure that we have a good connection. That's pretty good. And now I just want to clean off any excess epoxy. Not really concerned about the epoxy getting on anything. I haven't done any finish work on these yet, so the epoxy is a lot harder to sand from my experience. So I mean, you want to get as much of it off that you don't want as you can before it sets up. We'll do the same thing on this side, and then we're just going to let this sit and probably let it sit for the rest of the day. I'm not sure what the cure time is on that epoxy, but I'm not in a rush, so I'm just going to let this set up overnight or throughout the day at least. Still have a lot of printing going on with the other parts. I'm actually printing the upper axle assembly, or the tensioner. It's called the tensioner. But there you go. Get a little bit more epoxy off of there. Again, I'm not worried about having a little epoxy. It needs to be finished yet, but I'm just going to let this sit and let it cure. And then we need to go ahead and drill the holes through the carbon fiber tube after that once it's cured. But like I said, I'm not in a hurry, so that's going to wrap it up for this video.